Chris Bruin. Ray Lapinus.
Here.
Connie Machini.
Here.
Carolyn Schofield.
Here.
Lindsay Keisman.
Here. All right, are there any public comments? Go see. Did you just sign that? Yeah. Seeing no public comments, let's move on to the approval of the minutes for the March 4th, 2025 Finance and Audit meeting. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
I'll second it.
okay. Any discussion? Oh, okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, minutes approved. All right, let's move on to 4A, the finance report for the period ending 2/28/25. I'll hand this over to Mel.
Okay, so on the balance sheet, I did want to point out that I spoke with county admin regarding on the balance sheet. There's normally balance sheet accounts for the receivables we have in for property taxes, so I thought the same thing would be true of sales tax. So I've been plugging them in until they finish their year-end adjustments. I was informed that they do not track sales tax revenue through a balance sheet account. So those amounts will be dropping off of the balance sheet going forward. So that, deferred sales tax revenue of $10 million last month is not going to be there going forward. So it looks like, our liabilities, assets, decreased by $10 million, but that's just, a reporting difference. They don't disclose those because they're not known, whereas a property tax, it's been levied and they know the amount. So it's because the unknown, they don't book the deferred and the receivable sales tax. So you can still get that information on the revenue and expense report. It'll show how much has been received versus how much we budgeted for. So that information's still there, it's just not going to be on the balance sheet. So that's the only thing I wanted to point out there. Nothing major to report on the admin expense. The only thing that was a little on the high side was membership dues, which is $8,000 of that was our ACMI, half of our ACMI dues for the year. So that was the first installment for ACMI. On the revenue and expense report, which is page 6 of the packet, there is a negative $1.6 million in sales tax revenue, and that is just basically the revenue that we earned for December, January, February that actually related to 24. Fiscal year 24 is being moved out of the 25 books and put into 24. So that's why that decreased. And then I did not have anything to note on the fee-for-service report. Did anybody have any questions on the finance report?
All right, Carolyn?
I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you again. I really like the layout. I mean, this is my personal, and I appreciate you accommodating some of the comments that I have said in the past, and I greatly appreciate it. And it looks great, very clear, and it's easy to read, and so thank you.
Good. Okay. All right, so if no questions, the next report is the opioid report. The only thing I want to point out is we received $115,457,000 of revenue this month, and that was not part of what we had projected we were going to get. That was additional funds we weren't aware of. So that's good news. So that 137.8 we budgeted for, that still is to come. So that's all I had to say on the opioid report.
I just wanted to make a comment on that, moving forward as we're getting some of those kind of unexpected installments, that I think that that'll be part of what we have to keep earmarked for the next year's opioid settlement funds because we would anticipate a reduction next year. So if we wanted to keep funding at the level that we were funding, some of these things are not extra money. They may just go towards next year's dollar amount to hopefully sustain the similar dollars that we were able to give out within that particular category.
And that's true because we've lost the.
Hold on. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's true because we've, the Jensen, which is the largest amount in that distribution, we fall out of that. So that was the largest amount of money that we were getting, and that falls out this year. So that is true. We're going to need all those additional ones coming in so that we can sustain it at the same level.
Okay. Any other further questions or discussion on opioid fund balance and finance report? Okay. Seeing none, let's move on to 5A, the draft fund balance reserve policy. So relating to our discussion last time, they went ahead and made the edits to the fund balance reserve policy, moving it down from our 5 months to 3 months, and shifting around some of the number of days that they need to maintain things. So this is, if there's any further discussion about this, we can talk about that now. Otherwise, this would be ready for us to present and vote on in our regular board meeting. Okay. And then moving on, related to that is the fund balance reserve spend down plan, which is inclusive of that $1.9 million number that we also discussed in the last Finance Committee meeting as well. So all of those edits have been made. And are there any questions or discussion relating to that? All right. Carolyn? Carolyn and
Oh, no, I'll be quick, because I just want to say, again, thank you. I think that it articulated everything that we discussed wonderfully and captured all what I understood to transpire at the last meeting, and it was emphasized in this, so I appreciate that. And yeah, I think it looks great, and I like that you added the fact of it can be reviewed on an annual basis. So I think this is great.
perfect. Can you press your button?
Oh, I'm sorry. My button's pressed. Okay. I thought a long time ago, we discussed fund balance, that people could come back after 6 months and ask if they needed more money, and that's not in here. It's saying that we'll review it annually, but if I recall, and I could pull back the minutes, that we said we didn't want them to come willy-nilly, here or there. We wanted them to come back in 6 months, and that's not in here. I just question that.
So my understanding is the mid-year kind of NOFO is still going to be in place for any unused dollars from that particular fiscal year. So what I believe what you're referring to is something we talked about more than a year ago, about taking almost like a year ago's excess fund balance dollars and reserving them for capital projects and different things. I think the spirit of that is still in place, and Leo or Mel can talk more about that. But my understanding is that we'll take whatever comes from the kind of Q1 part of Q2 audits and figure out what that amount of money is. And we also reserved, was it 300 or 350,000 that was left?
Yeah.
That we put into the budget when we voted that could be used in this mid-year. Leo, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, so Connie, it's separate from fund balance reserve. So, what you're talking about is the mid-year process, which we're going to be talking about at the board meeting next week, just kind of outlining it, that at Network Council, I'm going to be suggesting that we have a form already that we put in Foundant, We'll be putting out the mid-year process. It'll be for whatever dollars we have in the budget, the 300 and some that we had cut. Originally, we had 650, I think, budgeted for it, but we cut it. So we are going to be doing that. So that's more of a process versus a fund balance reserve.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Great. Any further questions or discussion on this? Okay, great. Then let's move on to 5C, the proposed fiscal year '26 personnel changes, which was, at our last meeting, we did ask that Leo would be able to come up with a job description for the proposed deputy director position. And there is a personnel change relating to the training role, moving from that 30 hours that we approved to a full-time position for fiscal year '26.
Excuse me, I remember, and I'll pull it out.
Hold on. That's okay. Good.
It was for 32 hours, because I remember asking, is that full-time? And yes, it was.
I
And
might have
now it's-
misspoken.
And
so-
now it's 37 on this. It's totally different than what we talked about.
So this is a personnel request for fiscal year '26 as it pertains to the budget that we're trying to give them direction on. The thing that we already did was for this current year,
Yeah,
for making a
but
change.
Who said that it should go to 37 and a half? I mean,
That's full-time.
who made that decision?
So I'm going to pass it over to Leo for discussion on the two different personnel
Okay.
requests to give us some additional information.
So which one, Connie, are you?
I'm talking about the position that went from 30 hours
The
to
training.
32.
The training coordinator?
Yes, and then all of a sudden in here, it's 37 and a half. I don't remember approving 37 and a half, and maybe
We did.
the rest of the board could help me with it. It
Yeah,
was for
it's not
30
approved yet. I mean, this is going to be for next, this is going to be for next year. So
Yeah.
it's whatever the board wants. I
Oh,
mean,
okay, okay. all
yeah,
right,
so this
'cause-
isn't approved yet.
Okay.
These are just the suggestions for fiscal year, the next fiscal year. So we're
Okay.
doing our budget now,
Right,
and so these are the personnel changes.
so you're thinking you need to raise it again?
Yes, and we said that when we were talking about the training coordinator position, or assistant position, that we said that we would be moving it to higher. But it's up to the board, to make that
Okay.
determination for the budget.
I have an issue with it, but I'll wait until it gets voted on.
Leo, can you share more about the advantages, as long as we're on that topic? I know I have some questions.
Sure, the
What-
training.
Yeah, what you see the additional, 7.5 hours giving us, because I know we're already, we're already with a position that is benefit eligible, which has to do with the cost, so this cost increase, I just would like to know what you see it being.
Again, the trainings are the priority, and then the other piece are the service directory and the website. So the service directory, I know, when I ran crisis services back in the day, I had a dedicated 20-hour-a-week person that was maintaining our service directory. We haven't really had somebody dedicated to really maintain that service directory. So those additional hours would be, really focused on maintaining that service directory and really making it comprehensive. I mean, there's things that we get asked a lot about regarding like languages, what therapists have certain languages. And that's something that we would like to make sure that we add all those components of, the provider agencies that have, therapists that have different languages. I mean, there's so much on that website, on that directory to update. So besides the website, it's also the directory, and that takes a lot of time and dedication.
I have a follow-up question then. As we were discussing recently, the idea of investing in something like Iris, would you see this person in charge of something like that as well? Or would this replace the need for our service directory?
Iris will be more of a referral system, so I think it's different than our service directory. And I actually see the DD running that project in the future, is the Iris system, because that's going to take, for implementation, it's going to take a lot of work with the providers. So I didn't put that in there because Iris hasn't been approved yet by the board, but I also see that platform being a key piece for the DD to help implement that in the network.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on this particular role? If not, I'd like to take a vote as far as our recommendations to the full board and then move on to the deputy director conversation. Yeah? Okay. Carolyn?
And I, again, will express the same concerns I did when we were moving it to the 30 hours, in that, especially now being a new year, I mean, this individual can choose benefits, and to not have the benefits included in there and make the assumption that they won't, I mean, they have to be offered it because they are eligible for it. And so now with the new year, they'd be able to take it. And it's, again, the position, so,
I can,
Yeah.
okay. Benefits for this, or health insurance for this person is included in the health insurance budget for '26, because they can take it now because they're at 30 hours. So
Okay.
this is kind of a separate, I did not put the health insurance here because this is a separate issue than the health insurance.
oh,
So
okay, because on
they're
here,
not-
it just didn't, it said healthcare costs zero.
Right, because that's already accounted for on the budget because they are eligible for it prior. If this change didn't happen, they're still eligible for it.
They are, and I guess I
Yeah.
missed that when we were talking about it before, that they're actually already accounted for in the healthcare budget?
Not in this year's because they're not taking it. It is in the '26 budget.
Oh, okay.
So.
Okay, cool.
You didn't get the budget because you
Oh,
didn't get your
that's-
email, but,
Oh, okay, yeah, you're right.
but you'll see it there.
Okay, then that's very helpful, so thank you. And then it would, the other thing, and I have it also, I'll ask the same with the other one, that this is an hourly position, correct? So they would potentially be eligible for overtime.
We typically have very little overtime because we do a flex system where they earn comp time. There are occasions where we do have overtime paid out, but for the most part, no, this person would comp their time versus going into overtime. So if they, do work late for a training or come in early for a training, they basically would earn comp time and use that as time off instead of being paid additional overtime.
And I'm just curious, how can we do it hourly versus salary?
Just basically, kind of the job description is rated as,
And the grade.
and they're graded as being a non-exempt or a salary position.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thanks.
Any further comments or discussion on the training assistant position?
Well, I want to make it clear, the reason I'm opposed to going higher is we're talking about not having a lot of money, adding more hours, adding more positions. I'm just think that at this time, we have to be very cautious. That's why it has nothing to do with the person. She's getting full benefits at 32. I know 5.5 more hours, but I think at this time, we need to be real conservative. That's why I am opposed to it.
Yeah. Carolyn?
And I'm kind of along the lines with Connie on, I don't have the whole picture here, and maybe it's because I don't have the whole budget, but I just don't have like the whole picture. And then again, with this one, like understanding the, I know, was it you, Ray, or Lindsay, you just asked about what this would include and what they cover. Having like a job description or that would be helpful to see like what they actually do, and then where that need is in increasing the hours. So really, I don't have that understanding, I guess. So I think on this one, I can't really make a clear decision because I just don't feel like I have enough information to really fully approve it at this point.
So as far as a timeline, there's no need to make a decision or a recommendation right now. So if there's extra information, then we can make sure that that gets presented at another Finance Committee meeting or at a board meeting when we present this. I know that I'm not exactly sure if the job description would change with,
It wouldn't change.
yeah, I'm not sure if the job description itself would change, other than just how many hours they have towards the tasks they're already assigned. So,
I guess understanding what they would be doing or versus now. I mean, we went from 20 hours. I mean, we were just 20 hours at this position. So like what now moving to 30 hours has increased, or, you know, what benefits has that provided? And now even moving to 37 and a half hours, you know, what further additional duties or services, or, you know, what more will they do, or training will they provide, or how will we benefit and making an additional investment, you know, that's going to be now almost double where they were, you know, 2 months ago. So I guess having that understanding would be really helpful.
I think it's a great idea. I would love to see maybe a 20, 30, 37.5 hour breakdown of what the, you know, I guess measurables might be, you know, as far as, you know, what can be done compared to what was done, compared to what we would lose if we maintained at this, you know, current 30 hours. So if that's something that can be provided to us, I think that would be great. Okay. I'd like to go on. I did ask Leo to come up with a job description for the deputy director position, and I know that she was able to take a draft at that. So I'm going to turn it over, Leo, if you want to share a little bit more about the vision that you have for it, or any areas of flexibility or board input that you're looking for.
Sure.
That would be great.
Sure. I took, you know, the job description based off of the last one, but however, the last deputy director position, as many of you know, we divvied out a lot of those tasks to the current staff. So the way we see this is not taking back those tasks, but again, looking at what's needed from a supervision management standpoint, and also the strategic plan. So really, it's those two areas of focus is, you know, some of the supervision and management, but really looking at the strategic plan. Also, that person would be having oversight over all our like independent contract agreements and people that are under that, which, you know, really could use more dedicated time, like our Kaizen platform, you know, the peer recovery hub that's just starting, the trauma informed, and as we talked about, the grant writer. And, so I see this person really being the key person with the grant writer as well. So, you know, those are the main pieces. I know I just put the draft forward to you. What I did was look at other deputy director and assistant positions at other mental health boards, along with those within the county, to kind of come up with this draft.
I will share some of my original thoughts, and I ran into Leo in the hallway and was asking these questions, but I'd rather ask them again here. You know, one of the questions I had was, what's kind of the minimum time frame we would need to look at if we were going to benefit from a deputy director position, meaning if we valued this position, but we didn't want to necessarily fund it December 1st, right? Sometime mid-2026, for instance. So I know we had some good conversations just about what they would get exposed to as far as a start time relating to the strategic planning process, and even being a part of, as we all can appreciate, being a part of the first year of allocations and everything that goes into reviewing the applications that staff does. So I think you did a great job of an explanation of what you saw as their involvement in the strategic plan, and I was hoping you could expand upon that because I thought it was helpful for my understanding.
Sure. With the strategic plan, there's a lot of work that we will be doing at the end of this year to the beginning and all through 2026 to plan for the 27-29 strategic plan. So at our next board development day, all the literature review, all the gap analysis and so forth in 26 will be coming forward to the board to pick our key strategies. So it's great to have that person here. As I talked to Lindsay, I came in and finished the strategic plan that was in place. and it's great then to have somebody here from the beginning who's going to carry out that strategic plan from the very beginning and to the end. So, in that position, whether they are a successor or not, they will be there from the very beginning to the end of that strategic plan. So at the end of this year, we start formulating all the literature reviews, the gap analysis. At the board development day in February, we will start laying out our new strategic priorities, the 3 to 4, and then we work the rest of the year with, the stakeholder inputs and so forth to do more of those initiatives and do more of the specific initiatives. So, again, this person would have a key role in that.
I know that Chris is not here, but I know that we've had a lot of conversation in this group about really wanting to know where the gaps are and making sure that we're funding exactly what we need to fund. And that process of the strategic plan with only so many hours in a day that I know you have and your team has, I think that this role is potentially in alignment with that goal as we look at really identifying where are the needs and tightening that up. So it's a balance, right, Connie, of like, do we want to spend money to do this, but is it money that we spend to invest in a person that would be able to really give us a lot of clarity in exactly what decisions we should make, given the fact that we know our next strategic plan is going to be inclusive of, a limited funding, situation. So I appreciate that, input. Are there any other questions or discussion regarding this deputy director position or any additional needed information that we feel would be necessary to make a recommendation? Carolyn?
I just was curious, did you do the strategic plan all in-house?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
And-
we did it all in-house.
Okay, I came in at the tail end, so I think
Yeah.
when it was printed up. And then I can tell you, I need time to absorb all of this. Like not having it before the meeting, I can't
Right.
give a whole lot of feedback without really taking a good look. But I will have the same question of like, it says it's hourly.
Oh, if that's the case, then it's wrong. It's exempt.
It's exempt.
It's exempt.
Am I reading this wrong?
It says exempt.
It says exempt on there, but then I'm looking at, it says hourly salary. And I know it says 50, 72. Is that just the way it was written, or?
It's just the way the form is. It breaks it down into an
Yeah, that's county's form.
Even though it's salary,
Okay,
so,
okay. It comes across the same, that's why it's,
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we're just basically dividing,
by the number of hours, 1950 times 50.72. That's why it's not a number. I thought it was kind of a weird hourly wage, and so that's why. Okay. All right, thanks. It's just the way it's written.
Great. Connie?
Yeah, I need more time to absorb this also and what our cost would be, because I hear from the county that we are going a little heavy in administrative. We need more time to look at this, and I can't approve it right now. I just can't. And I would want something to say, what will our cost be on an overall budget? What will the cost be at,
Show on the budget.
So currently, the draft budget is inclusive of this position in the admin personnel, and Mel can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it does put our admin expenses at 17%, but that is also including the bathroom project, which is sort of inflating our admin budget.
I just know that they come to me all the time and say, we're a little top-heavy at the administrative here. And so I would have to look at it more like Carolyn does. I
Do you
can't.
agree with that, Connie?
Do I agree with it?
That we're top-heavy?
I think that as far as a budget, I think we're fine now, but we keep adding to it. I think that I'm not in favor of it right now. I'm just not.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. I don't care.
Ray?
One of the questions I have with regard to additional costs, $1,000 seems to be pretty low for a computer. And will this individual also have a mental health board cell phone of their own? To me, $1,000 seems to be super low on bringing on an individual of that caliber.
Mel, do you have any feedback on actual cost associated with that?
We are actually preparing for another lease, so their computer would be part of that lease. So in the '26 budget, it probably wouldn't be $1,000, but it's going to be spread over a 5-year lease. Right now, with the computers we have, it's like $5,700 a year. And that's for, I think, currently 12 computers. So we'd be adding another computer for another 5-year lease. So if this position would be approved, we'd add it to next year's lease. So it wouldn't be $1,000 in the '26 budget, it would be spread over,
Prorated.
yeah.
Okay.
And also, right now, our cell phones are $45 a month, so we would probably, yes, get them a cell phone of their own, too.
And also, a deputy director, as we know from previous, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to step into the executive
Correct.
director role. Sometimes when they show their colors and they're doing their job, they're not capable of being executive director. That's all I'm going to say.
I'll add that I'm not in favor of adding this particular role for succession planning purposes. I think if we want a deputy director role, we should feel like we want that role on an ongoing basis. And for me, if it does come down to succession planning, I'd rather see us, hire exactly for that and be willing to pay for an overage of 6 or 12 months for that person to shadow our existing executive director as a one-time cost. So I think, getting clear on, for me, when I look at this, I'm looking for what's the long-term value, for a role like this? And will it come back to us is sort of the question I have, right? Like, if there's more time spent on crafting collaborations in our community, are there savings there? If there's more time spent on, opportunities with the grant writers, will that money come back to us? That's always how and that's, let's be honest, there's no way to know for sure if that is in fact going to be the case. But it does make sense to me that it could mean that. So it sounds like we need time to let this soak in, and then regarding the other personnel position, some additional breakdown of kind of the tasks and outcomes of that 20-hour, 30-hour, 37.5-hour differential would be really helpful and perhaps can be presented again to us, either
It
in
went
this
from
committee or the full board.
Yeah, it went from 20 to 30 to 32 to 37 and a half.
It was never 32. If I said that, I misspoke.
Yeah.
So it was never 32.
Okay.
We approved it at, I believe, 30 hours, and they're requesting for the next fiscal year for it to go to 37.5.
I just remember saying, is 32 full-time? And somebody said, yes, it is, in one of our meetings.
So for healthcare, 30 hours is full-time when it comes to benefits, which I think was the basis of the question. So,
Okay, I'm just not prepared to
Yeah.
discuss it.
but let's give our staff direction on what would help us be better prepared, or at least, at a full board meeting, present that information. Leo?
Yeah, and I think,
Oh.
you'll see through the,
Sorry, I turned you off on accident. There we go.
and I think you'll see through the budget, the draft budget, it'll just be more of a visual for you on these positions. So again, we wanted to just have this done early so that we can have those budget discussions.
Perfect. Any further comments, questions, or discussion on this topic? Okay, wonderful. Let's move on to the draft of the 5-year capital plan. So we discussed the importance of trying to budget relating to the building and the building needs and what we would do as a finance committee about this. And this was the building needs assessment that was done that projected out over a period of time the different needs in the building. And I don't believe we can let Bridget or Melanie talk about this, but I don't believe this is a perfect and whole representation of anything and everything, but just some some suggestions to what the costs might be and what the term of some of these are. So I wanted to, after reflecting on this, open up some discussion, but from a finance perspective, we're stuck in a position of, okay, we need these dollars, we need to put these in the budget. But then what if we don't need these dollars, then we haven't used them, which also doesn't look great for how we're managing our funds and how we could use those into client services. I, for one, feel like it'll be our Buildings and Grounds Committee that really needs to make a suggestion for what funds need to be earmarked and when maybe they could be released back into some other purpose. But I wanted to open it up for discussion because this goes to the whole issue of, well, we have to put it in the budget, but we don't really want to spend money on it if it's not a necessary thing or if it hasn't broken yet. If the Finance Committee has any perspective that they would want to add into our, current year, fiscal year draft budget, or for future years, how we would want to use a tool like this or instruct our staff to put this into budget projections. Connie?
I just have a question, and I think this is to Bridget. What does, in the kitchen, interior finishes, is that painting? Is that what it means? What does interior finishes mean? It's just a question.
For the CRC kitchen, it's probably the interior kitchen, countertops,
Oh, okay.
floor, those types of things. And also, can I add, while we're on this, that I did send out, or Melanie sent out, I did put together a very quick forecasting model, and these items are on that forecast. I sent it to you, to your personal email while we were here. A forecasting model, very quick and simple Excel spreadsheet that has all of these items in it, and then you can kind of play with it by adding the numbers in and out of it. And that can be put up or used to add these numbers throughout any of the years and duplicate them across if you'd like to use that as well.
I think this is very good, Bridget.
Oh, thank you.
Really,
This
truly.
was not mine, but the other one was.
Well,
Thank you.
whoever this is, it's very good because it gives, an estimate cost and the year and the year that it needs to be spent in. I think it's good.
And I believe the Building and Grounds had made a recommendation for having like an updated assessment done. So we'll probably be working on that.
Yeah, I'd like to try to see if FM could come out and at least do
Right.
a site walk.
Right,
Save some money by doing it that way.
right.
I think as I look at this, I see, things in there that, if we didn't spend, using this yellow example, $100,000 in 2022 for basement walls, right? Do we still need that money, and does it then move from 2022 to 2023, 2024, 2025 until finally we have a broken issue or right now kind of issue with it? So we have to have that money, but then also we're locking up money, which I think comes back to how do we be good, be fiscally conservative to manage our building, but also, how do we release it? Whereas when I look at things like interior finishing or painting or carpet, within the same year, and I'm going to use interior finishes because it seems to do 30,000, then a 2-year break, then two 30,000s, and then a 2-year break. It's like at some point, if you move that $30,000 year over year and you don't end up using it, then I would hope we would move those dollars back into client services. Bridget, did you have something else to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, just remember that this assessment was done in '21 as well.
Yeah.
So all these numbers are not necessarily real time. So if you look at the forecasting model at the bottom, at least one of the bigger expenses we'll see in the future is, of course, HVAC. And so I asked them to give us today estimates for everything that we have as far as HVAC. So you'll see that in the bottom left-hand side, that all of the HVAC that we have, you can multiply it by the times that we have. We could do something like that with the bigger ticket items. But again, this is not necessarily real time. It's just estimates based on FY21, or not even FY21, back in 21. So
Connie?
Yeah, I have a question to ask you. The HVAC, just what you gave an estimate of the whole building was 195,000? That's an estimate.
that was based on the assessments. Yeah, the assessment report done by that company. So if you go to the forecasting Excel spreadsheet, you can go by every single HVAC unit we have an estimate per HVAC unit for total replacement now. So.
I just know my HVAC had to be replaced this summer at the cost of $40,000.
Correct. That's why I'm saying.
That was one.
Exactly. That's why I'm saying this assessment was done in 2021.
Okay,
So there's,
okay. All right.
Great job with that forecasting.
Yeah.
thank you.
Like I said, I don't know if there's any further discussion, but I really think as far as input into our year-over-year draft budgets, that this should really come from our Building and Grounds Committee, with hopefully annual updated estimates and information, but that, this gives us an idea of the kind of earmarking that we would have to do in the budget and holding space for that. So any further discussion on that? Carolyn?
I think, oh, is it me? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I appreciate this because, and I agree with you. And we did ask for this at Building and Grounds, so this is hugely helpful. And I think that is exactly what we were looking for. And we'll be able to move things around and decide then based on this information. So again, thank you for that. It's very helpful.
Great. Ray?
I'm actually,
Oh, never mind. Leo, did you have anything to add?
No.
Okay, wonderful. All right, seeing no further discussion. Update on NDAR's capital funding. Leo, do you want to give an update, or Mel?
Update on,
New Directions Capital Funding Project?
yes, thank you.
Can you turn that?
Yeah, as you know, you all approved some of the opioid settlement dollars for the capital project, back in November from New Directions. And we've been working, the attorneys have been working. They knew that New Directions wouldn't need the dollars until the spring, but here it is. So they've been slowly working, but doing a nice job on the contract. There's a piece in the contract, just wanted to get your input, that the attorneys were going back and forth on, regarding, as you recall, we're paying for phase 2 of the project, and then there's going to be a phase 3 of the project. For phase 2 of the project that we're paying for, we're going to be expecting receipts all at the end of the reconciliation process. We'll be expecting all that. But for phase 3, the attorneys had first written, that receipts would be needed for phase 3, and that's not possible to have receipts for phase 3 before we relinquish phase 2. So my recommendation is to have a letter, besides the receipts for phase 2, for phase 3, is to have a letter from New Directions regarding how phase 3 would be funded and supporting documents. So they talked about CBDG dollars, they talked about fundraising. So any supporting documents that by the end of the year, then if there's any compliance issues with that when we do the reconciliation process, then that would come back to the board at that time. So just wanted to get input on that, and I know New Directions is here if you had any further questions.
Any discussion?
Refresh my memory, Leo. What is this on? It's a building that they're buying?
Yeah, they're building, and we are doing the phase 2 of it, which is a lot of the things that we talked about here with getting things in place for, in the building. So we're supporting that Phase 2 piece. I think I've got some of the contract here, but we're supporting the Phase 2. And then there's a Phase 3 that we're.
Phase 2 is like electric, gas,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff?
Yeah, Bobby, you want to?
Okay, I'm just curious what we're supporting. Can you come up
Can you
to
come
this?
to the mic?
Thank you,
Thank you.
Bobby.
Can you press the button? Oh, there you go.
I'm not to do it. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So we have $980,000 from an ARPA grant that we were awarded like 3 years ago. And we were there's about $280,000 in additional construction that we'll need to do, which is what Phase 2 would be for the mental health board, which would be over the next few months here. And then Phase 3 would be things like interior painting, countertops, like the very final few things, which we're anticipating is about $200,000. And we've applied for funding through a home grant through the county, through CDBG. We also have a donor of ours who is tentatively agreed to help us get over the top if it comes to that, if we don't get this third grant. And we've also, as a backup contingency, talked about doing a capital fundraising campaign at the very end. We also structured it this way because Phase 3 is also things that we could potentially pull in volunteers and people to help with, things like painting the interior of the apartments. So there's very low risk of that, of us like running out of money at that point. So basically, once we secure the mental health board portion through Phase 2, it's that's pretty much what we need just to get over the hump.
Great.
Thanks, Bobby.
Thank you,
Okay.
Bobby.
you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So just wanted to run it by, to tell you that the contract is almost done, and that's our recommendation, that we said back to the attorneys is, for new directions to provide a letter, receipts for Phase 2, that's what we're supporting, and then a letter stating with supporting documentations how they're going to fund Phase 3, because it's not realistic to have receipts for Phase 3 before we release
Right.
our money for Phase 2. So just wanted to make sure that we're all in alignment with that.
And this is really just
Yeah,
done
this
to
is-
protect us, to ensure that the project will, in fact, complete.
Complete.
Correct. I don't personally have any objections to the recommendations, so. Any further discussion? Okay, not moving on. All right, moving on to new business, 6A, our draft fiscal year 26 budget. So this is our updated fiscal year 26 budget. Opening up for discussion. As a reminder, our timeline is to review this, make recommendations, and this will be put forth to the regular board in, I think, April, but then we'll be voting on it in May. Is that correct? To see if there's anything else there. Mel, did you have anything you wanted to add about our fiscal year 26 budget?
No, just if anybody wanted me to walk through anything, or if you wanted a walkthrough, or you just want to kind of review it on your own and talk about it next month, it's up to you guys. I can give you a few highlights, or we can just,
Why don't you give us the highlights, Mel?
okay. So as we talked about, looking at salaries here, this includes the new position that's being proposed and the increase in the hours for the training assistant. So those hours, or those positions are reflected here in the salaries. So that's like a $176,000 increase in regular salaries, primarily for those two changes.
176,000, Mel, for two positions.
It's
30
also merit.
It's also merit, yeah, from last year that
Increases for
rolls into it.
Okay.
And then, only other thing I'd want to point out is right now, we're projecting the new position and the training assistant both adding health insurance, so that's reflected here. And some of the numbers are still subject to change because I don't have final percentages like the health insurance increase or, what the IMRF percentage is going to be. So there's still some things that will be updated for more information as I get it from county. So those are the items in orange. So that's salary. The next section is just our general admin. And for the most part, it's going to be pretty comparable to last year. We are adding $10,000 for a CARF survey next year. So that's going to be on the budget. So overall, our admin expenses, I'm projecting, will increase by $224,000, but that also includes $300,000 for doing a bathroom renovation, which, we need to talk about and decide.
Is there a question? Hold up.
Yeah, that did go out on an email on Friday.
Yeah.
I can resend it to you.
Yeah, if you could, and again, and I'm just curious too, like why these don't get put in the packet.
This did
especially
not
if you
get
have-
put in the packet because I had I normally present this in April, so I basically lost a month of work.
Okay.
So I was still scrambling to get this done on Friday, and the packet went out on Thursday.
Okay.
Otherwise, it could have gone.
Well, and can't you
Yeah.
can't you republish it within that time? Like if you have it still and it's within 48 hours?
I suppose we could have. I didn't think of it because this is going to be in the packet next month as well.
Okay.
And then in the following month, so it will be in the packet.
Okay. It'll be in there
so-
next month. Okay. Yeah, just, and especially now in light of my computer issues I've been having for the past year.
Yeah.
It is helpful if it's, I can just go on the web. Not only just for me, but then, everyone else can see it too. So,
Okay.
thank you.
And then next is transfers out, and basically we're looking at a decrease there since the new IT position has basically been graded lower, so we're not looking at as high of an expense this year. And then occupancy costs, or our building costs, I'm looking at a $10,000 increase overall next year. And basically, that's also accounting for planning to replace 2 HVAC units in the year. And then the next, we're going to skip over this direct to providers right now and kind of go into the details for MHB managed funds. So we have our normal expenses for marketing and training. Trauma-informed care is still going to be there, the grant writer. We're looking at adding a disaster coordinator ICA for $20,000, and then the IRIS implementation for $22,000. So those are the major changes in that budget category. And then in MHB, provider managed community funding, we're basically right now keeping everything the same, except we are not projecting or budgeting a mid-year allocation hold. So that's one thing I do need input from you guys on. If you want to pull money from the original allocation pool to hold back for mid-year. So right now I have it at 0. If you want something held back, we can, definitely do it, but it would be, pulled from the original allocation pool.
It's 100,
100
line 100.
in blue. So that's kind of an overview of the expenses. So we're basically looking at an increase in expenses of $325,167. And going back up one page to the green number, so that would be our allocation pool, we would be looking at $10,206,774 being allocated directly to providers for grants and funding. And it's showing that's a $142,000 increase, but that doesn't account for the fact that we pulled $300,000 last year from that. That's not being in there. So it's actually a $159,000 decrease in services overall. Looking at income, we're projecting $350,000 in interest income. I'm projecting a decrease from this year's $400,000 because we're going to have less money in the cash balance. Occupancy revenue, we're projecting being fully rented. And then we're projecting $10,350,000 in sales tax revenue, basically a 3.5% increase from what we're projecting this year. And then we have the 1.9 million in fund balance that, it was decided by this committee that we wanted to include in the budget. So then, if you look overall, we're looking at a 17.21% admin budget and 82.79% in client service budget. So it's a very quick overview. You guys will have time between now and the April meeting to look more in detail and let me know what you have questions about, what you want to hear more information on, but that's just kind of a quick overview.
Thank you, Mel. Ray?
Sure.
Mel, if you could forward to the board members this updated spreadsheet. There was 2 errors that I had asked Mel to update.
And I will do that.
Great.
And then just one more page down, real quick, the opioid settlement funds. Right now, I'm projecting based on what we've received and what we're anticipating receiving for the year, that at the end of this year, we'll have $663,000 in fund balance for the opioid settlement funds. So putting, kind of coming up with a budget for this year, I was putting $500,000 in of opioid fund balance, and then overall funding of $683,000, which is actually $176,000 less than what we're doing this year. So we could put the full amount of fund balance in if you guys want more, but then, we're just kind of tapering off what we have in future years, so. And that's the budget.
Okay. Leo?
Yeah, I was just going to remind the board that when we did the forecasting out, that, we did put in for the administrative budget for next year to be at a higher level. But as you saw, if you guys can recall, that in future years, it goes back to the level that we were at. So it's just next year that administrative budget is a little higher, which still, best practices is under 20%. We're still under that. But I just wanted to remind the board that, again, that anomaly with the increases in the staffing, but also mainly the bathroom project is in there. So it does go back down to our regular level after that.
Thank you. Carolyn?
Thanks, and I appreciate those comments, because I will say that you do say that, you've said that before about the 20%, but I know the county kind of uses more like a 10% on administrative expenses, so even at the 13%, it's kind of a little bit over where the norm is, and the 17% is like definitely a red flag. And I think that's why, it's been brought up a couple times on the building and, having, how often is the 17% going to pop up? And that's why that graph that Bridget put together, the spreadsheet, is really helpful, so we can make those determinations, because really 10% is kind of more of an ideal of where, admin costs should be lying. So it's the first time seeing it, so I appreciate that we have a lot of time to look at this and absorb it. So I don't have many more comments, but I do have a question on the opioid one. With that 859, is that including the capital project then?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, so I think those are great numbers. I like that it's lower because I think that's a big chunk that we anticipated with that capital project in this year. So I don't think we, should be as high as we were this year for that reason. So I think that that's great, holding it back and putting it, having an additional reserve there. So thanks.
One of the, building off of what you said there, Carolyn, one of the things that I know Leo and the team have really tried to do is, as the year goes on, moving dollars around. And even if, with the administrative budget, there's no perfect forecasting, right, is how I feel about it. And, sometimes we can move that and, hopefully, the idea would be that we could move that where it needs to go. And I see that with the building, it's like, we can earmark $195,000 and not even need it, and that could really inflate our percentage when we're trying to set a budget. So I think the conversations around our building and being clear with building and grounds, or even looking at maybe a historical average over whatever, 7 years or something like that of the building to see like what percent did we actually end up using, right? And how much of it got reallocated into something that feels more aligned with client services, I think is kind of a question that I know I have. Because when we throw around numbers like 17% or 14%, it's always, the year end, and then I have to go back and reflect on what did we move around. And I know some of that we're gonna get corrected in kind of the new way we're laying out our month-to-month budget, information that we talked about last time. So, yeah.
And that made me just think too, in saying that, on how those numbers may fluctuate. And I think especially we've talked about with the bathroom projects that there may be opportunities of either getting grants or, there may be other, or if we don't spend it this year and it gets deferred to next year. I do hope that, especially because it is kind of that higher year, if we don't spend it this year, that we're more conscious about, not just rolling it into services or something like that, that it actually gets rolled because it's going to catch up with us at some point. So taking a look at that average, and I think that was the whole point of taking a look at the next 5 years, so we have an understanding maybe the average of building costs over the years, so that we are preparing for those high years and not just, budgeting for it and then spending it somewhere else if it doesn't get used. And I think that's, more critical than ever if we can get ahead of ourselves over and add even another, positive year, extend it, another year or two out before we really start getting into that red or, or the yellow even. So, yeah, I think those are good points that you have that we need to take into consideration. So thanks.
I will add one piece that I have some hesitation in, which relates to our, fiscal year 26 draft budget, but also their forecasting document. The 1% increase in interest income concerns me. I remember when I started as treasurer, the interest that we were supposed to get was like $9,000 based on years and years of data, and then it was like, some insane amount of money. And so, I think that's another area we're going to have to keep a really close eye on, because the difference between, $400,000 and $9,000 is a lot of funded programs or a lot of bathroom projects, So, I think we were in an advantageous position here the last couple of years, but how sustainable that is long-term, I think it's something I'm going to watch for. Ray?
Yeah, Melanie, also, I requested the forecasting model to carve out the interest income from other income. So we see other income is the rents and some miscellaneous. So now you can see and actually play around with those numbers on those two categories.
Yeah. Great. Any further discussion or input on the FY26 draft budget? Okay, seeing none. Our next meeting is our regular board meeting, Tuesday, March 25th. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, our meeting is complete.